Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio. And now, here's our host, Dr. Vanessa Anceloni.
Welcome, dear listener, to Kardec Radio. Today we're going to talk about the psychological take on André Luiz, the spirit doctor who is guiding our lives with his book series, which was psychographed by the wonderful medium Chico Xavier. And to really make the discussion ever more meaningful and deep, we have invited Dr. Ona Graham. She's a clinical neuropsychologist in private practice in Columbus, Georgia. And as she says, an evolving spiritist since 2007. And she is here with us to chat and, discuss this very important topic. There's so much about mental health in André Luiz books. It can be really life-changing, and it can change health professions as well. We can really integrate a spiritual approach into the common, conventional approach to make it ever more effective and meaningful as well. Before we talk about the very issues of mental health and how André Luiz addressed them in his various books that he published, from Non Solar to When Life Goes On, we need to share with you that the Medical Spiritist Association in the United States is organizing a special event on the weekend of the 20th and the 21st. And you're very welcome to join them. You just need to go to their website. And the website is sma-us.org. And you can find the information about the very topic that we're discussing here as well. And you should join this beautiful organization because there are many doctors, psychologists, nurses who are joining in to discuss consciousness from beginning to end of life and beyond. The website is www.sma-us.org. It's going to happen in D.C., Washington, D.C., September 20th to the 21st. Doctors Marlene and Aubrey and Sonia Doi will be hosting the event, and renowned researchers such as Gary Schwartz and many others, Mario Beauregard from Canada, and many others are going to be there to discuss these very important topics. You should join in, register as soon as you can. Talking about health, André Luiz developed the very issues of health and mental health based on the teachings of Kardec. Chico Xavier, this wonderful medium, psychographed more than 400 books. Amongst them, André Luiz was one of the spirits that brought information that are really ahead of humanity's progress. We say that Spiritism is really at the vanguard of scientific advancements, so much so that there are books, almost like in a prophetic way, bringing revelations that science is proving day in, day out. Which means, as Gary Schwartz said one day here at Kardec Radio, if we're smart enough, we're going to read these books and pay attention to what the spirits are saying, create beautiful protocols, scientifically speaking, and get to the very findings, proving that life really is beyond what a physical eyes can see. Day in, day out, life is showing to us that it is more than really our eyes can see. To kickstart the program today and to set the tone of the program, a message by André Luiz. Once he psychographed a message that can be really inspirational, 10 Commandments for Self-Improvement. And we're going to listen to this message, go to our first break. When we come back, Dr. Ona Graham here with us to discuss, in a psychological take, the teachings by André Luiz.
10 Commandments for Self-Improvement, André Luiz. Number 1. Decrease your needs and increase your concessions. Number 2. Intensify your work and reduce the share of wasted time. Number 3. Elevate your ideas and repress your impulses. Number 4. Release the present individual in you towards Jesus and imprison the one of the past that still lives in you. Number 5. Watch your gestures and understand the gestures of others. Number 6. Persevere in the noble study, recognizing in life the sacred school for our ascent to God. Number 7. Judge yourself and forgive indiscriminately. Number 8. Speak with humility, listening intently. Number 9. Meditate constructing and pray serving. Number 10. Trust in the eternal love and fulfill your daily obligations that He assigned to you.
We will return to our program after these messages.
Getting to the Light. Spiritist Therapy for Discarnate Spirits is a small book that offers guidance to Spiritist practitioners and Spiritist counselors. Purchase your copy at www.ssbaltimore.org.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
If you missed out on a previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand section of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website at www.kardecradio.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Help prevent suicide by reading and sharing these books with others. 2 great books are available to help in this Kardec Radio campaign to prevent suicide. Suicide, All You Need to Know, by the international Spiritist speaker Richard Simonetti. You can buy your copy at www.roundtablepublishing-uk.com. Also, Memoirs of a Suicide by the medium Yvonne Pereda. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Kardec Radio, live every Saturday at 11 a.m.
Kardec Radio now offers more programs during the week and weekends. Every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you can follow the beautiful program God at Home with Francisca Kranz and the British Spiritist community. They will brighten your days by doing a God at Home meeting wherever you are in the world, while teaching you how to do the same in your own home with your family and friends. Every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you will hear incredibly inspirational Spiritist talks directly broadcasted by Spiritist Network. They will be true educational moments to carry out to immortality. Every Saturday, live interviews, Bridging Health and Spiritism with the host Dr. Vanessa Anceloni. You may ask questions to the interviewed guests by calling 858-769-4705. And every Sunday, tune in to Spiritist Awareness at Kardec Radio. You will hear a series of segments on a diversity of Spiritist topics. Kardec will broadcast the Spiritist Moment with Kirsten DeMello, the reading of the Spiritist book by John DeRosa and Steve Shepard, Spiritism in Your Life with Drs. Marco and Joyce Magalhães, Spiritism and the Gospel with Luiz Sérgio Marotta, Spiritist Education for Youth and Children with Bernadette Leal, Spiritist Music with James Marotta, Neuroscience and Spiritism with Dr. Vanessa Anceloni, and many more segments coming soon. Enjoy it all and nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
We will return to our program after these messages.
New release, Liberation. In this compelling narrative, André Luiz emphasizes the work of high-order spirits in the effort to convert the spirit Gregorio to the good, an effort that culminates with the unforgettable re-encounter with his mother, herself a highly evolved spirit, wherein he surrenders to the irresistible call of love. The book also contains information on how unhappy spirits act as they try to involve incarnates in their wiles. The spirit author tells of the intercession of high-order spirits on behalf of human beings, demonstrating the divine compassion that grants to all the blessed opportunity to free themselves by means of study, labor, and persevering service in the practice of the good. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Want Spiritist books for your children? At Edicei of America, you will find a collection of them. From the best-selling book, Our Father, in which the Spirit Mei through Chico Xavier brought countless poems, stories, and folk tales based on the Lord's Prayer, to the beautiful and educational collection by the author Adelison Sales on Back to School and many others. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
If you missed out on previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand sections of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website, www.kardecradio.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Spiritism for Everyone is the live web study meeting and educational program of the United States Spiritist Council. This year, in commemoration of the 150th anniversary of the Gospel according to Spiritism, the Spiritism for Everyone program will present an in-depth study of this remarkable book. Join us every Wednesday evening through the web from any computer or mobile device, no matter where you are in the U.S. Spiritism for Everyone is free, open to all, and requires no registration. For more information, go to www.spiritist.us.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we are here at Kardec Radio to discuss André Luiz books, his teaching especially on mental health, and to help us understand the psychological take on his works. We have here a good friend, Dr. Una Graham, who is a neuropsychologist in a private practice in Columbus, Georgia, and as she says, an evolving spiritist since 2007. Thank you so much, Una, for being with us today at Kardec Radio.
Good morning, Vanessa. It's such a pleasure to talk with you.
Una, becoming a spiritist or as an evolving spiritist, as you mentioned, is something that requires a lot of reflection. How did you actually become acquainted with Spiritism and then you realized you became a spiritist per se?
Well, I think that I was a practicing spiritist for many years without the theoretical framework. About 37 years ago, I was at a mediumistic meeting, and I received a communication from Dr. Andre. And it was very practical. It was about growing spiritually, and it included a meditation that gave me an image that was just so beautiful that I immediately sat down and painted it. And then I forgot all about that and continued on in my life trying to be the best person I could possibly be and struggling in so many ways as most of us do. And then about 7 years ago, I got kind of awakened to Dr. Andre's story. I found out who he was. It was Andre Luiz, and I found No Solar, the book that he originally wrote, and read it, and I was enchanted. And I thought, this is good. This is solid. This helps me understand what I've been doing for the past 30 years. But that wasn't enough for me. I needed to know. I wanted to talk with people. And I didn't trust the kind of people that hang up those signs with the crystal ball, psychic readings. I wanted to talk to a scientist. And that's when I found you. And I found you connected to Spiritism, connected to Dr. Andre Luiz, and it all started coming together. And you sent me several books to read, and I read them through first time without a lot of comprehension. And then a while later, as things around me started to change and the conceptual aspect of Spiritism started to grow in me, I read those books again, and then every book I could get my hands on, and began my education in the scientific and theoretical aspects of Spiritism. And I think the life experience, the reading, and then trying to practice it on a day-to-day basis is what's made it a living experience for me, and why I call it an evolution rather than a title, because I'm just starting down that road, and I know I have a long way to go.
And as from embracing it personally to actually being more active and joining, a group, or even creating a center, as you named the center after the Spirit Andre Luiz, it's a very different journey. How was it for you to go from somebody who embraced the teachings or really felt like the teachings were already in your heart to actually being more active like you are nowadays?
Well, it feels like being pushed up against the edge of a cliff, and you look down and you go, okay, do I jump or do I not? And it's a matter of faith, I think, and trusting in the good spirits and in Christ's message to us, and that the support will be there. It happened probably a lot faster than I was ready for. And so with a lot of intervening events and, for instance, more recently, the death of my husband, that's kind of put me in a different frame, and it's kind of forced me to step back and let things happen in the way they're supposed to. I think, what probably one of my biggest character flaws is I want to control everything, and I want to make things happen according to my time frame. And that just doesn't work in Spiritism. It's such a much larger than any one individual, and we're all such an important part of the picture. But none of us has me most certainly am not developed enough to be running the show. So learning to step aside and take a back seat sometimes just to sit and rest. I think that we can get caught up in doing too much. So I'm in a resting phase, and as I do that and I calm down and deal with the changes life has brought to me, I'm also seeing things happening that I know that the spirits are making the Spiritist Center evolve at its own rate and in its own way. And then I'm just a little bit of a facilitator there, and that this was meant to be, and I'm just I'm just the one who's going to get the key to open the door. And I like that. I like knowing that I'm not in charge, but I do have a job to do, and the job that I have to do well. So, and that gives me comfort, knowing that it doesn't rest entirely on my shoulders, that each one of us has something to contribute, and every one of us is essential in the process of our evolution.
It's interesting because last weekend I couldn't be there for several reasons, but I know the Atlanta Spiritist Movement had another conference, and you were able to participate and actually give a talk. How was it there?
Well, I don't know that I gave a talk as much as I gave an opening statement of welcome. I guess the struggle that we face with Spiritism in the United States came really clear to me at this conference, because predominantly in Atlanta, Spiritism comes out of the Brazilian community. And my Brazilian family has an affinity already based on culture and a common kind of background in Spiritism and an easy communication. And being, a Brazilian in an American culture, I think gives them almost a natural affinity toward one another. And us Americans who are kind of standing there going, okay, I want to be a part of that, but I don't see learning Portuguese as part of my future because there's so many other things going on. And so there's this distinction. We had two rooms that were Portuguese and one room that spoke English. And the people in the English room wanted to be in the room where they spoke Portuguese. And so it was a bit of a challenge for us to be happy with where we were at. But I think it points the way to, in the future, we need to find some way of incorporating Spiritism needs to grow within the American culture. And I think that more and more, as I become aware of that, I understand that there's so many other trends in terms of it's not Spiritist practice, but other practices like spiritualism and other things like Reiki, which is certainly far more accessible to the mainstream Americans than Spiritism is at this point. So I think we've got to start making bridges and building a process where we can kind of come together in our diversity as Americans and be able to find that harmony of working together without having to give up our identities or learn Portuguese, which is a shortcoming of us Americans.
It's interesting you're saying this, Anna, because as a Brazilian American, I get your feeling. Though I was born in Brazil, since the Spirit asked us to disseminate Spiritism where we are, it came to us as common sense that we have to do in the language that the country speaks, because everything in the literature says this way. We have even a message by Luiz himself in the book Among Others of the Other Lands, which is first chapter. There we are going to find first instruction. When you're traveling to another country, you should learn the language of the country. Plus, we published 2 issues of the Spiritist magazine with unprecedented letters by Chico Xavier in English, in which he is saying, when he was traveling to the United States, that he was learning Spiritism in English, and he was learning English as well to be helpful to the dissemination in the United States. So we have been advocating for the cause of Spiritism in English in the United States ever since we begun it more than 12 years ago. And we feel, sad that it's taking that long, though we respect and understand the limitations of our friends and colleagues, in different parts of the United States or around the world. But I am hopeful that we are growing out of that mentality little by little each and every day. For example, if you come to Virginia or Maryland, you're only going to find Spiritism in English. Though we have Brazilians in the groups, we don't do meetings in Portuguese at all. So I think it's just a matter of time for people really to understand that if the language can be a true barrier. That's why people call it language barrier. It can be a wall. And I tell people all the time, to the Brazilian spiritists whom I know, I say, imagine if we had, for example, let's say a language that is very difficult for us Brazilians, like Chinese. It's very hard for us to understand. So let's say Chinese friends go to Brazil and find, and they found spiritist centers in Chinese. How are you ever going to approach it if they don't speak Portuguese? We won't, period. And that's why the dissemination is delayed. Talking to Divaldo Franco, he agrees that Spiritism is delayed in its dissemination at least for 50 years. Because when Chico Xavier came in 1965, the plan of the spirits was to make that happen back then. But people were postponing. But we're hopeful that as we can see the progress around the United States, we are getting out of this limitation. And I think people like you are helping because the more Americans joining in and creating their centers and partaking in this, we can really make this happen sooner than later. I think it's a two-way road. The Brazilians going one way, overcoming the language barrier, and the American friends also joining in and making efforts to, giving us encouragement and support, and also partaking in the efforts as well. And I think in that regard, I commend you for what you're doing there in Atlanta as well, because you're encouraging people to go that way. And it's just a matter of time. Don't you think so? It's a matter of time?
Well, I do think so, and I've started talking with some of the other spiritists in Atlanta about the challenges of drawing Americans together, because we may not speak Portuguese, but our biggest obstacle is really our distractibility and our overcommitment to things, and the difficulty we have with time management. And with all these distractions, it's hard for people to make a commitment to themselves, and Spiritism is a commitment to that deeper part of ourself. So we have a lot of distracted and kind of aimless decisions and activities, and people come and they look, and perhaps, seeds are planted that will grow later on, just like in my own case. But it's hard sometimes not to be frustrated with my American friends, because it's so hard to get them to make a commitment. It's almost as if they're afraid they're going to miss something if they go in one direction rather than in another. And sometimes we can be a little too eclectic and just not settle in and get deeper into the message and let it take hold in our hearts. And I think that's something that my Brazilian family can do extremely well, is to bring this to a life in the way that they love and care for one another, and especially the way they loved and cared for me during the time that my husband was sick and in the hospital. I mean, they just surrounded me and took very good care of me. So you can't find that kind of love just in other places where one might expect to find it. So the whole concept of family, which I think we in this country need to reignite, and the family centered around moral development and loving, rather than how many clubs can you get your kid into and what's the best school, because home is the best school. And so we've got a lot of work to do in this country, and I think that Spiritism does provide a foundation for that. And along with that moral center comes the mental health. healthier children come from healthier families that have values that sustain them, through the trials and tribulations that our culture presents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you come to areas where centers are solely in English, like in our area or Baltimore or in a few other places, you're going to see that this kind of discussion is gone. Like, we don't even discuss about this any longer because everything is in English. The Brazilians don't complain because they know they're living in the United States. It's good for them to speak in English. And not only the Brazilians, but the Hispanic friends as well, the Spanish-speaking ones as well, they join us and they embrace it. So I can tell from when we started it, like 12 years ago, till nowadays, it's just a matter of time. For example, the literature in itself helps. We nowadays have almost the whole series of Andrea Luiz in English. When we started, we had basically like a few books. We didn't even have like a good translation of Kardec's books at the time, and now we have good translations of Kardec's and manuals and many other spirits as well. So we have a great advantage nowadays when people are joining the works of Spiritism because we have the basics, which means the literature. And talking about Andrea Luiz, Ona, I think Andrea Luiz really caught your attention in Spiritism for reasons that are probably mostly related to your clinical practice, right?
Well, I think more towards my personal life experience. I truly think that there are many Spiritists walking around who are living it in practice but not in theory because they haven't had contact with the theoretical framework. And Andrea Luiz, he kind of changes the foreground and background. When I started reading his books, the foreground of my life, which is the day-to-day struggles and my psychological training and my personal history, suddenly got juxtaposed with the internal life and the awareness of I think Andre's gift is his ability to describe life from the other side, looking back at the life in the material world. And when he does that and you get drawn into that, it gives you a new perspective or a new view. And it's so unique the way he does it and his focus on the loving relationships and the difficulties in relationships. Again, that's very psychological and it addresses my professional needs, but it also addresses my personal needs. And I think that would address also when people start to read that and absorb the perspective, looking back on, someone's looking at me in the life that I'm living and wanting me to be a better person and is there to help me. I'm not doing this alone. I'm not isolated. And Americans especially become isolated in their kind of ego development. They get cut off from their deeper self, and they begin to live more at the periphery, kind of identifying more with the roles that they play rather than who they are essentially. And we're educated in the rules of proper conduct, and we have these rules that we look at, but we're not transformed on the inside. We haven't made that connection to our deeper selves. And once that connection is made, and once we see ourselves from the spirit world looking back on who we are today, the transformation, those connections start happening and changes begin to happen. Our perspective and our understanding of why we do what we do and what does it mean becomes more relevant. We're not just here to fulfill a role, like I'm an employee in a building and I work for someone and I come to work every day and do this. If I'm a loving being here in this capacity, yes, I have this job, and this job is a wonderful opportunity. This is great to be here. These are good things in my life rather than just a job. I'm a human being and a loving person, and I can make a difference. And Andre does that. Andrea Luiz does that in his book so well that it's just astonishing because read at a superficial level, they read kind of like novels, of, oh, yeah, well, that's a clever device. But in the background, there's this constant theme of love and progress and growing and development and evolving. And as Andre evolves, and we identify with him in his development, I mean, when he entered the spirit world, he was asleep. He didn't know who he was. And then he wakes up and he starts to discover his real humanity. And he's saying to us, we don't have to wait. In fact, please don't wait, Start that process now. Wake up and begin to live the life eternal, because we're not just, this isn't all there is. There's so much more. But this is important, and we're here for a reason.
Yes, you said it all. And we're going to give a short break on, but when we come back, we'd like to discuss with you a few passages from some of his books and, the psychological take on it, okay?
Wonderful.
We will return to our program after these messages.
New release, Liberation. In this compelling narrative, Andre Luiz emphasizes the work of high-order spirits in the effort to convert the spirit Gregorio to the good, an effort that culminates with the unforgettable re-encounter with his mother, herself a highly evolved spirit, wherein he surrenders to the irresistible call of love. The book also contains information on how unhappy spirits act as they try to involve incarnates in their wiles. The spirit author tells of the intercession of high-order spirits on behalf of human beings, demonstrating the divine compassion that grants to all the blessed opportunity to free themselves by means of study, labor, and persevering service in the practice of the good. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Once spirituous books for your children, at Edicei of America you will find a collection of them. From the best-selling book, Our Father, in which the Spirit Mei Mei through Chico Xavier brought countless poems, stories, and folk tales based on the Lord's Prayer, to the beautiful and educational collection by the author Adelson Sales on Back to School and many others. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
If you missed out on previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand sections of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website, www.kardecradio.com.
Nourish your soul with Kardec Radio.
Spiritism for Everyone is the live web study meeting and educational program of the United States Spiritist Council. This year, in commemoration of the 150th anniversary of the Gospel according to Spiritism, the Spiritism for Everyone program will present an in-depth study of this remarkable book. Join us every Wednesday evening through the web from any computer or mobile device, no matter where you are in the U.S. Spiritism for Everyone is free, open to all, and requires no registration. For more information, go to www.spiritist.us.
And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we are back, and we apologize for the little delay here, some technical things, but we are here with Dr. Ina Graham to talk about Andre Luiz books. Andre Luiz books began with No Solar. Before he started psychographing his books through Chico Xavier, he actually spent 2 years by Chico Xavier's side to actually go through the affinity process between medium and the discarnate spirit. And we say affinity in the sense of acclimating to one another. People usually think that mediumship is like a snap. people, I want to communicate. Oh, yes, let's talk to the spirit, let's talk to the medium, and that's how it goes. It's not like this. There are spiritual laws to understand spirit communication, and the Medium's book by Allan Kardec explains pretty much how it goes. And André Luiz, in one of his books, In the Realms of Mediumship, deepens the concept. But now with Dr. Ona Graham, who is a clinical neuropsychologist, who's here with us, and a spiritist as well, we're going to discuss a few scenarios that are presented by André Luiz in his books, and how we understand some forms of mental illnesses, mental disorders that can happen caused by spiritual things. Ona, in André Luiz's book, And Life Goes On, there is the case of Elisa, and I say this in Portuguese, Elisa. And I think that's exactly the way they kept the name in the book. She became mentally challenged after she became obsessed by a spirit of someone she loved, and actually loved her too, but it was not that sublime love, and the symbiosis between them made her sick. She wasn't aware of it, but at the end of her life, she discarnated out of mental illness and some physical difficulties as well. How do you see such cases being good explanations for mental illnesses nowadays?
Well, that's a very broad discussion, but I thought to narrow it down, we might look at what I often see as obsessive processes in individuals, which can go from kind of a mild obsession to a very severe obsession where it becomes almost a personality disorder. You also see this obsessive process in issues related to addictions, and I'm not just talking chemical or alcohol addictions, but now we have what they call process addictions, where people lose themselves in these behaviors that are stimulating, but they don't allow the person to become a better person. They're like it's self-gratification. It's the very lowest type of life that we can live on this earth, which is very, I guess you could say, almost. It's not even based on animal instinct at this point as much as it is on selfishness and greed, that need for immediate gratification. So when I start looking at some of my cases, I start thinking about, where is this person at in their spiritual growth and development, and what is their challenge here in this world? What are they facing? And usually you can see, the greatest area of conflict has to do with the areas that they're obsessing about, the things where the negative energy and negative thoughts or negative relationships start to come into their lives. And then it begins to become apparent maybe the wound that they've gotten in this life, or something they're bringing from a past life that they're struggling with, trying to get beyond or get past. I can think of one particular patient. I won't go into real specifics, but her mother died when she was 15. And when she became the same age as her mother did when her mother passed, she became obsessed with illness and obsessed with her mother, and would spend hours on the internet researching illnesses that she believed she had, and then hours sitting at the graveside of her mother, obsessing about her mother. And the impression I had was that there was a mutual obsession going on there, unresolved issues and things that needed to be addressed. And yet she was so locked in that obsession and was so supported by her surrounding family that they were unwilling to do the work. And then I see other families, other people who have the same experiences, but they're ready, and for some reason they're ready they're hurting enough. They don't want to be angry or sad or obsessed anymore, and they're ready to make those changes. But the individual's got to be sick of being sick. They've got to want and then reach out for that help. And I think André Luiz talks a great deal about that the help is there, but we have to ask for it. We have to ask. The best mental health professionals in the world can't help somebody who doesn't want to be helped.
It's interesting that you mentioned the vulnerability enter according to our own mental patterns, our emotional patterns as well. So you mentioned a few. And André Luiz, in one of his books like Sex and Destiny, which was recently published in English by Edith America, talks about the case of a lady, Marina. She was induced to a mental, breakdown due to spiritual influence. And André Luiz explains the reason why she was vulnerable to spiritual obsession is because she had this very strong guilt due to wrongdoings. She was cheating, she was betraying her sister, etc. So that made her vulnerable to the attack of the spirits. So you mentioned a few vulnerable points mentally and emotionally. How about guilt? How do you see guilt playing like a role in mental disorders, mental illnesses as well?
Well, I think there are two kinds of guilt. I think there's a false guilt that we tend to generate or is generated perhaps by some of our religious education that says, you have to act in a certain way, and if you don't, then you're a bad person. But then I think there's a violation of our conscience, which is takes me to, I think, a basic premise of psychology, which when I was trained, we talked about the mind being a black box, and that there's nothing in it, and that what you put in it and what you get out of it has to do with training and your life experience. But Spiritism talks about us being born with a conscience, that we have many incarnations, and that we bring with us these challenges, and we know when we come into each existence many times what it is we need to overcome. And one of the things I'm finding very fruitful in my work in doing counseling is to draw people to that fact that there's something inside of them that tells them what is right and what is wrong for them. It's not, let's not go running to church and get a list of proper behavior. Let's go inside and take a look. What are you here working on? What makes sense to you? What are the central themes in your life? Where are you stuck? And I think, it's when people start to look at themselves and find these adhesions, these areas where their spirit and their energy is frozen, and they keep going back to those and pestering them, and that's, I think, the door in which a lot of negative energies and obsessions come in. The willingness to forgive is so important. So many people choose to hate instead, and they don't even understand why they do that. And then that hatred locks them into negative patterns with other people. And an example from yesterday, a lady was approached in church by another church member who said something to her and handed her a garment, said, "You need to cover up your boobs." And this is a very modest woman to begin with. Well, that's an interesting exchange, but what she did with it is she took that and she turned that into a whole week of hatred and hurt feelings and resentments to the point where she's planning to leave the church. And it's like, okay, so let's look at let's look a little bit deeper. Let's look inside of you. We know that this person has their own problem, but what is going on with you? And so we get down to the basic thing, which is I want to hate people, And it's like, well, what do you get out of hating people? And where does that come from? And then when you begin to ask those questions, and some people are ready to start looking at previous life experiences, some are not. But when you challenge them to integrate the message of Christ into that moment, that simple experience, someone made me mad, and so now I'm going to walk away from them. And then say, okay, well, what's the challenge here? How do we heal this little wound? And once they start to learn how to heal themselves, it's just amazing how they go, oh, okay, well, this hurts over here. Let me see if I can kind of heal that one too. And then when they start releasing themselves from the bondage of their negative thinking and they get more energy, they get excited about life again and they start to love. And, oh, my gosh, once that door gets open, once people get excited about being a loving person rather than stand around going, why aren't you loving me? It just transforms them. And I think, in all of Andre's books, that's the message that he gives. We're here to learn, and we're here to learn how to love. We're not here to be served and waited on by everybody else. It's just the opposite. And if that's not the basic message that Christ brought us 2,000 years ago, and then people have forgotten the message, and they've gotten caught up in their roles and wanting to be admired for who they think they are, rather than experiencing who they truly are and sharing that with other people. So that, I think, when we realize we're born with a conscience, rather than the conscience that is acquired through some type of education. I mean, there's a big, big difference. Big difference. I mean, one speaks to us as eternal beings that have this limitless capacity. The other says, "Oh, you got this one chance, pass, fail." You're either a good person or you're not, and all these other people are good, but you don't fit in. So therefore, you can't be a part of this. So Spiritism takes that exclusivity out of it. It makes the guilt that we experience truly transforming, because it comes from our relationship with God rather than our relationship with an institution that we want to be a part of. So helping people begin to let go of these ego obsessions, and being obsessed with being a good person is equally as undermining as being obsessed with hating someone. And then moving to one's own center and experiencing the love of God that's there, and then letting that propagate and flow out of us. And takes us places and brings us experiences, with the laws of affinity. If I'm thinking dark and negative thoughts, I'm going to be drawing all sorts of negative experiences to me because I'm paying attention to them. But if I start to generate this loving sense of my presence, other people feel that and are transformed or change. And that is the only way to change. And Andre does that over and over and over again in his stories when he talks about his growth process and his interaction and his need for humility and his need for guidance and his desire to love, and then those challenges that he has, which is his old self kind of reasserting itself, saying, no, I think I've got this, ego and pride and all the things that we struggle with. On this side of life, he tells us, we still struggle with them there, and we still have to solve these problems. We still have to become more loving.
Yeah, I think you summarized so well. Oh, it goes above and beyond, because actually it covers cases that are, for example, in the book In the Realm of Mediumship, when Andre Luiz talks about how hatred, wrath, these negative emotions can create what he mentions like mental bacteria and create spiritual infections, leading people to illnesses, disabling them, and as you said, it can really happen. Like in the book The Messengers, Andre Luiz talks about this vibratory cause of negativity that people create with their mental negative thoughts, and how people collectively can also be sick due to the production of this negativity. So you not only explained it, but you mentioned about how to heal, how to actually prevent, right? Or if you can prevent, how you can remedy it with this new attitude in life. As you said, like, how, because you're going to attract what you give. But you mentioned something also very important we need probably to discuss a little more. You mentioned about previous lives. Sometimes when we see that people are stuck in a pattern, we ask, like, where did that pattern of behavior was created? Where was it created? Sometimes we see in this life probably not enough to really establish such a strong pattern of thinking, of feeling, of behavior, or relationships that can be really toxic and people can really not let go. So reincarnation can be an explanation. Do you really think that without the explanation of reincarnation, many things will be impossible to understand, clinically speaking?
Well, I've had been privileged to have a number of clients who can work at that level and are beginning to kind of, I think a lot of it has to do with accepting the challenges around you and not seeing oneself as a victim. And for instance, if one gentleman is having problems at work with people giving him a difficult time, and he wants to be angry with them, and when he thinks about them as people from perhaps a past life that perhaps he hasn't always been kind to or he owes them a debt, it moderates his reaction. And he starts to think of it more in terms of, well, maybe I need to be kind to these people and try and make amends. And that's so counter to what we're taught in our culture. I mean, we're a society now of entitlement and victims. And so instead of getting angry with them, he tries to be compassionate, tries to understand. And in the process of doing that, his self-awareness increases and his reactions. And then what it is that instead of feeling justified in being angry, he looks at what is it they're doing that's getting me upset? What do I need to fix in me? And as he does that and grows, he's not creating more negative adhesions. He's not creating more illnesses. He's healing the energy field around him. You know, if we start talking about the chakras, you know, which is, I think, more and more common, people understanding the 7 chakras and how our energy fields work, we can block different areas, or we can cause those areas blocked into this life. And then the challenge is how to be free, how to free ourselves up from that negativity or that vulnerability. You know, some people are vulnerable to being victimized. Some are vulnerable to abusing other people. Some are prone to depression. Some are prone to suicide. You know, I very seldom see people who are prone to be happy, joyous, and free, you know, but I think that's the nature of this existence, is to actualize that within us as best as we can with each time we come through life. So I've had some interesting experiences also in terms of my own self-awareness of past lives and having people come into my life who've played a role in healing, which has been mutual. And it just simply helped to accept and to resign oneself to being human and to continue on the journey rather than get stuck at being mad that this isn't fair and this shouldn't happen to me and you need to change. The focus again turns back within oneself, as this is a tremendous and wonderful journey that we're on. And how can we be better? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're going to give one last break, and when we come back, I would like to ask you a question by a listener who sent to us through email about the current situation around the world and how you would bring the spiritist and psychological view to explain this, okay?
Okay.
We will return to our program after these messages. Want to learn more about the ins and outs of mediumship? The book, In the Realms of Mediumship, by the spirit doctor Andre Luiz through the medium Chico Xavier, analyzes the various aspects of mediumistic communication and mediumship. He also praises the efforts of mediums who are faithful to the spiritual mandate they received before they reincarnated, warning them about the risks of badly practiced exchanges between the two worlds. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com.
The Spiritist Magazine is a trimestral, digital periodical that publishes the latest news on the Spiritist thought and the movement in the USA and worldwide at www.spiritistmagazine.com.
Spread the word. Kardec Radio, to learn more about Spiritism.
Study Spiritism online at eSpiritism. eSpiritism is an online tool to promote the study and practice of Spiritism while contributing to the preparation of Spiritist practitioners. For full access to courses, go to www.e-spiritism.org.
If you missed out on any previous shows, no worries. We have an on-demand section of all previous shows and interviews. Go to our website at www.kardecradio.com.
Emmanuel's Novels. The reputable mentor, Emmanuel, wrote a 5-book series of Spiritist novels that can truly transform your life. Starting with 2,000 Years Ago, Emmanuel delights our minds with the true account of characters that are so similar to each of us. Discover yourself in Emmanuel's novels and live better. Buy your copy today at www.ediceiofamerica.com. And now we return to our program.
Dear listener, we are here discussing, in the last part of the program, questions regarding problems that are happening nowadays. And Dr. Ona Graham is helping us understand from a clinical and also personal perspective the works of the Spirit Andrea Luiz by Chico Xavier. You can read these books by going to ediceiofamerica.com and buying from No Solar to And Love Goes On. We have Sex and Destiny, The Realm of Mediumship, The Messenger, Action, Reaction, Liberation, Works of the Life Eternal, Missionaries of the Light, and more to come. Ona, when we talk about the Andrea Luiz, he says in a book, it's the view into worlds. We are here living incarnate life, but he teaches us how to expand our perception about life, understanding that there is a spiritual life, intertwined with the incarnate one. Nowadays, this is a question by Peter from Canada. He sent to us by email, asking about something that is very disturbing and is happening nowadays. People who are joining this barbaric group, this terrorist group around the world, the ISIS, and he's trying to understand if whether or not these people who are engaged into this crazy group and the ones who are joining in are possibly under some form of obsession. What do you think?
Well, I have no doubt. It's easy to be destructive. If I have a beautiful pair of boots, it would take me 5 minutes to destroy those boots, but it would take me years to learn how to make a pair of boots. So being creative is certainly more difficult, requires discipline and skill and attention, loving attention to what you're doing. Terrorism, along with any type of destructive behavior, is the easy path. It's easy to destroy something. It's easy to destroy people and terrorize people. These are the baser parts of being human. It's the more instinctual self. And from what Andre Luiz talks to us about, he talks about the mirror world in the spirit world of these lower zones where unevolved spirits that are in rebellion and choose not to be loving or feel they deserve to be punished or adhere to the leadership of horrifically negative and destructive individuals and support their vision of the world. I mean, this is the counterpart to what's happening in the world we have here today. So we know that through the laws of affinity that we draw people to us, both in the physical plane and in the spiritual plane, who resonate at the same vibratory level. So if we're having negative thoughts, we're going to be surrounded by negative people. if I have thoughts of murder, if I have thoughts of wanting to terrorize people, those are all going to be seconded by spirits that want to experience that and want to support that, and who are a driving force behind that. But fortunately, the opposite is true, is that when we want to be loving and more positive, and we want to see things grow and nurture things, we're seconded by spirits around us who support that and guide us through that. And what I often tell people when they're sitting there is you make a decision. Either you choose to jump into the sewer, or you choose, with your decision, to jump into a crystal brook in a beautiful scene. You know, where do you want to be? And some people actually continuously, out of bad habits or out of bitterness or resentment or just flat-out rebellion, they want that negativity. They don't want to give that up. And so they're going to get more and more of that until they eat themselves up with being sick. And one of the things that Spiritism has helped me to understand is that evil is self-limiting, that it destroys itself, it turns in on itself, and that love has no limits whatsoever. Love is part of that eternal evolutionary process that creates the universe and beyond. So when I see things happening, and I know that so many people turn on the news and they become obsessed with, you know, the things that are happening in the world. They become obsessed with ISIS and this negativity around that, and feeling that they have so much power, and they don't. And oftentimes I encourage people to turn off the TV, you know, quit obsessing about negativity, because you're drawing that to yourself, and start focusing on the positive things in your life, and begin to build heaven on earth where you live, because that's the only way we'll transform this world. And people look at you like you're crazy. What? No TV? What? If I don't hear what's going on in the world, I mean, people are going to think I'm stupid. Well, I can guarantee you anything important, it's going to be brought to your attention. But wasting our time with worry and fear and anxiety, and giving these terrorists the power and control over us. I mean, I saw that with 9/11, where we had, shortly after that event, I had people coming in with mental illness because they were obsessing about, you know, that catastrophe. And these are people thousands of miles away from, you know, where this actually occurred, but they had actually made themselves sick by replaying these images over and over and over and over again in their minds and being obsessed with it. And that's, I think, the power that the terrorists want, is to make us afraid. And I think it takes courage, and I think it takes an act of faith in God. And when we turn that TV off, or when we don't go negative on Facebook, or when we take a negative moment and turn it into a positive one. Or we, for instance, the building that we're working to purchase for the Spiritist Center was a bar for 57 years, you know. And also it used to be called the Knife and Gun Club, because if you didn't bring a knife or gun, they'd supply you with one. So now, you know, it's a place of healing. And the whole atmosphere has changed around it. And it's gotten the attention of the entire county, that has only known this place as a place of darkness and trouble. And so suddenly there's this light turned on, okay? And now what do we do to keep the energy and that light burning brighter and brighter and brighter? And that, I think, is far more powerful than anything ISIS can do to anybody or anything, because that light is eternal. Their destructiveness is self-limiting. And you know, people who, what does Christ say? We need to pray for our enemies, so we need to start praying for them, and praying for their conversion, and praying for them that they get everything that we want in our life, asking God to bless them with all the blessings that we have in our life. And when we start coming from that point, that attitude of gratitude, then we have more of a potential of changing what's happening over in the Middle East than if we sit in front of the TV and feel angry.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much happening around the world, and you're right. We have to protect our minds. Otherwise, we'll get sick as well. So, it was beautiful discussing everything we have been discussing with you, and we are ever more happier to know that you are so engaged and you're willing to share these teachings with other people in your center as well. Now, as your final comments today on with Kardec Radio's listeners, as a neuropsychologist and also as a spiritist, regarding mental health, what would you like to share or recommend to the listener who is around the world at Kardec Radio and would like to listen a message of hope?
Well, I think that mindfulness has become a very popular movement now, and I do think that we need to be mindful. And I think people need to put their thoughts daily to the test. And the test is, do I want to swim in the sewer or do I want to swim in a beautiful crystal brook? And when we run our thoughts and our decisions through that filter, we can see where we're going. And it's so worthwhile to do that. It's so worthwhile to keep choosing to go to the positive and to keep choosing to bring more light into the world. And I think that is where we will transform ourselves. And, someone pointed out to me that Christ never wrote anything. Okay, he never wrote anything down. He didn't write us letters. He didn't write us gospels. They were done later on. But what he has asked of us is for us to be living letters from him to the world. And I think that as we choose a more positive path and keep leaning in that direction, we become those living letters of Christ to the world. And that's the true gospel message. Same with Spiritism. There's wonderful theories in the book, but it's the practice of Spiritism. It's the practice of loving. It's the practice of choosing the positive that will get us where we need to be in the millenniums to come. We will continue to evolve, and the darkness will fade.
You said it all. Ona, we are not only thankful to you, but would like to extend an invitation. You can think about it. Would like to have you more often at Kardec Radio. And then actually, who knows if you would be available to be host for a segment every Sunday on Spiritist Awareness. It's an invitation for you to think about. We can discuss more later, but it's delightful to hear how you beautifully bridge up Spiritism with our daily lives, and also from your perspective as a neuropsychologist as well. Would like to thank you very, very much for your time and for your willingness to partake into this beautiful journey of sharing the Spiritist teachings with people around the world. Thank you so much, Ona.
Well, thank you, Vanessa, for giving me an opportunity to grow also and to experience the joy of interacting with you and communicating with other people. And I will certainly consider your invitation. We'll talk more about it.
Thank you. So, dear listener, we hope you have enjoyed. I know our time is running out, and, we would like to talk to Ona for many more hours, because as you have been writing to us, these topics we're discussing are so vital in our lives. Who doesn't feel guilt? Who doesn't feel hatred? Who doesn't feel anger? What do we do? Who doesn't experience spiritual influences? What do we do with it? There's so many questions. Under Luiz can answer all of them. But, we need help to go through all these books with the many teachings. They're so clear, but at the same time so deep. They are there for us to free our minds so we can be freer from difficulties, limitations, ignorance. The more we know, the more we are set free. As Jesus said, truth can set us free. Talking about Jesus, we're going to end up now our program today with a prayer. Usually we end up with a prayer, but before we do, we're going to remind you once again, on September 20th and the 21st, the Medical Spiritist Organization in the United States is organizing their 5th
Spiritist meeting. And you can join them by going to their website, sma-us.org, making a registration, and being there. Well, in the meantime, you can listen to Kardec Radio's programs either online, live, or on demand. Tomorrow at 8 p.m., we have Spiritist Awareness for you. Several hosts around the world sharing the Spiritist take on many issues in life. And on Wednesday, Mackenzie Mello and Francisca Kranz are bringing to us the breakdown of André Luiz's book, No Solar. They're going to read it for you, discuss, and you can send your questions and comments to us at kardecradio.com. We have a contact form. We're happy to listen from you. Also, we'd like to share that on Thursdays, Daniel Santos from Spiritist Awareness is bringing to us beautiful talks from speakers around the world telling us about the Spiritist take in life. Right now, we invite you for our final prayer. Thank you, dear Mother, Father God, for this moment of explanation, consolation, clarification. Thank you for sending Chico Xavier to the earth, the medium who was the channel of so much free information for us. Thank you for the spirit of Emmanuel and André Luiz, who brought to us this new understanding about life. And we thank you for sending us Jesus, the friendly Master, who invites us every day to brotherhood and to self-confidence, knowing that we are your children. Please share these vibrations of love that you pour onto us with our brothers and sisters in humanity who are now suffering, especially those who are thinking of committing suicide. May they receive this shower of light as a break to their mental confusion. May those spirits who are obsessing them also feel embraced and loved. And please help us improve our resources, the inner and the outer resources, so we can reach out to even more people around the world who are willing to find you every day. In your guidance, protection, and permission, we finish our program today in the joy of your love and light. And so be it. Dear listener, wherever you are in the world, please feel our loving embrace. Send your questions and comments. We are here for you. We are here to nourish your soul because Spiritism is here for you as well. This is it for today. In a week, Kardec Radio comes back live on Saturday, 11 a.m., finally with a beautiful program with Elder Rossi, the chairman of the British Union of Spiritist Societies in England, coming here to talk about some books she wrote for children, Spiritist books for children, and we'll be here to answer your questions and talk to you as well. Remember, God is always providing. All we need to do is to perceive His blessings. Thank you, dear listener. Many blessings.
Thank you for listening to Kardec Radio, broadcasting live every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Email us and share your comments at www.kardecradio.com. Until next time, we wish you many blessings.